Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going after a really enticing idea, passive income.
Yeah, it's a term you hear everywhere, isn't it?
Exactly. And you've sent in a great collection of information, everything from Samantha North's personal experiences, NerdWallet's look at 2025, Bankrate covering strategies and taxes.
And invest on real estate, Fidelity asking how passive it really is.
Right, plus Fourth Way on P2P lending risks, even a Reddit thread on affiliate marketing. So our mission today is to, cut through the noise.
Get to the reality.
Yeah. What does passive income actually look like in 2025? The effort, the potential returns, and crucially, the risks they maybe don't shout about. Okay, let's unpack this. What's the real deal here?
Well, it's so important to dig into this because
Hmm.
passive income can paint quite a rosy picture, can it?
For sure.
Bankrate gives us a decent starting point. Regular income, not from your main job, maybe rentals or a business you're not actively running day to day.
Yeah.
Think royalties, dividends. But, and this is a key financial coach, Todd Tresidder, points out that the passive part almost always comes after a lot of upfront work.
Right. It's not instant magic money.
Not at all. The passive bit is later, maybe just maintenance.
Exactly. So it's not your 9 to 5. It's not really a second job, just trading more hours for pay.
Mm-hmm.
And Fidelity Investments puts it perfectly, asking just how passive is passive income, really? It makes you stop and think.
Absolutely. That upfront effort is a recurring theme, plus all these sources. Take online courses.
Yeah, let's start there.
Samantha North's experience, it matches what NerdWallet and Bankrate say. It takes a lot of time,
Like planning, writing, recording.
all of that. Plus the tech hurdles, platforms, editing,
Yeah.
and then the big one, marketing.
Getting people to actually buy it.
Exactly. Just making it isn't enough. North also mentions imposter syndrome, the actual cost of equipment.
Right, it's not free to start.
And she's really skeptical about those get-rich-quick promises, especially the idea that AI can just churn out a great course for you.
Doesn't sound right, does it? And the NerdWallet data on Udemy.
Wow. It's very sobering.
Average instructor making just over $3,300 a year, and 75% make less than $1,000.
While the top 1% rake in over half the earnings.
So that dream of easy money from courses, it seems more like a very active, maybe low-paying side gig for most.
That's a good way to put it. It's hardly passive if you're in that bottom 75% struggling to market it. The top earners probably have huge existing audiences or are marketing geniuses.
Which is active work.
Definitely active.
Well, okay, let's switch gears. Affiliate marketing. This is another big one.
Huge. And Samantha North actually had some success here, even the big commission ones.
But
But she's clear. It is not effortless. Creating that high-quality content, proper reviews, useful guides that search engines like,
takes time.
a serious amount of time. Research, writing, optimizing it so people find it. SEO.
And she says you can't just rely on AI anymore.
Right. It needs to be original, add real value, often based on your own experience. That's what builds trust.
Makes sense. And the Reddit discussion seems to back this up.
Completely. Lots of people saying it's not a side hustle, it's a business. Needs strategy, skills, persistence. Marketing is key.
Okay. And North also mentioned low payouts sometimes and ongoing work.
Yeah, keeping links updated, dealing with program changes, algorithm shifts. It's constant maintenance.
Sounds risky.
It can be. The Reddit thread shows the full spectrum, people making basically nothing for months.
Like $24 in 3 months, someone said.
Ouch. Right up to people claiming huge figures like $100K a month plus.
Wow. But often in specific niches, maybe ethically questionable ones.
Sometimes, yeah. Gambling, adult content were mentioned, alongside potential tax issues. But the main point was the time commitment. It takes a long time to potentially reach those high figures.
So the takeaway on affiliate marketing.
Eyes wide open. It can work, but it's definitely not passive. It requires real effort, understanding your audience, and marketing savvy. Diversifying seems smart too.
Got it. Okay, moving on. Ads on blogs or YouTube channels.
Yes. The dream of just putting up content and letting the ad money roll in.
Samantha North's experience sounds like a cautionary tale here.
It does. She was doing okay, then an algorithm update just poof, income plummeted.
Yikes.
She emphasizes needing massive traffic. She means being really good at SEO.
Getting found on Google.
Exactly. And we're talking huge numbers, like hundreds of thousands of views a month to make serious money from ads alone.
Plus, ads can be annoying for users, right?
Definitely. They can hurt the user experience, drive people away.
And North mentioned the temptation to just chase traffic, write about anything popular.
Yeah, potentially compromising your content. Plus, ad networks have strict rules and you constantly need new content. It's not set and forget.
So relying just on ads feels fragile.
Very fragile. Diversification seems key again. Focus on creating value first. Maybe ads are just one part of the income puzzle.
Okay. What about ebooks?
North is pretty skeptical here too, at least as a primary income source.
Why is that?
Creating a good one takes real effort, weeks or months. And she doubts AI can produce quality, often just bland or messy.
Plus the perception. People often see ebooks as low value.
That's part of it. Bankrate agrees on the upfront work and the need for marketing.
But they mention low publishing costs, global reach.
True, platforms like Amazon make that easy, and they can be short, but the risk of investing time for little reward is high.
So maybe not the core passive income stream.
Probably better, as both North and Bankrate suggest, for building authority or an email list, part of a bigger strategy.
Right, that makes sense. Okay, let's shift to something more physical, renting out property.
Ah, the classic landlord route.
Samantha North has direct experience, and she says flat out, not passive.
Not surprised. Maintenance is constant, right? Either your time or paying a manager.
And the costs, mortgage, taxes, insurance, fees.
Unexpected repairs. Finding good renters.
Yeah.
Dealing with tenant loss.
Yeah, North had a friend with legal issues. It sounds like a lot.
Definitely. NerdWallet confirms the potential for cash flow in good markets, but also the long-term stress.
They had an average landlord income figure, around 16K for 2024.
Yeah, but that's before all those costs we just mentioned. The actual take-home could be much lower.
And renting your own place short-term, like Airbnb.
NerdWallet mentions it, but again, check local rules. It's becoming more restricted in places.
Well, Invest brings in the idea of real estate for wealth building.
Right, distinguishing between active management being the landlord and passive investing.
Like REITs or funds.
Exactly. They argue that can be truly passive, offering dividends and diversification without the hands-on hassle.
Okay, that's a useful distinction. What about paid membership communities? North mentioned those briefly.
Yeah, her verdict, not passive at all.
Why not? Recurring revenue sounds passive.
Because the monthly fees are often low, so you need lots of members. That means constant marketing.
Ah, and you have to keep them engaged.
Continuously.
Yeah.
New content, interaction. It's basically running an ongoing service.
Wow.
Sounds like a full-time job, really.
Okay, definitely not passive then. Let's look at the investment side now. Dividend stocks.
Often touted as passive income, but North makes a crucial point.
Which is?
You need serious capital, a lot of money invested to get meaningful income.
Right. NerdWallet explains how they work companies sharing profits.
Yeah, ideally, growing payouts over time, less volatile than growth stocks, good for diversification.
But their example, $10,000 invested yielding maybe $230 a year before tax.
Exactly. It illustrates North's point perfectly. You need a big pot to live off dividends alone. Bankrate suggests ETFs for diversification and lower costs.
Okay, how about bonds, bond funds?
NerdWallet describes them as lending money to companies or governments for interest, generally safer than stocks.
But low returns.
Typically, yes. They suggest bonds for stability, especially nearing retirement. Their Treasury bond example, $10K yielding about $210 semi-annually, shows the kind of income.
Bankrate mentions bond ladders for predictable income, but also risks.
Yeah, like companies defaulting or interest rate changes hurting bond values. Still need to be aware.
Okay. Real estate investment trusts, REITs, you mentioned them earlier.
Right. NerdWallet explains there are companies owning commercial real estate malls, apartments.
And they tend to pay high dividends.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
And you can buy them easily, like stocks through a broker, or get diversification with REIT ETFs. They quote, a strong historical return, though past performance isn't future guarantee, of course.
Bankrate agrees on the stock-like purchase and dividend potential.
So REITs seem like a viable way to get real estate exposure and income without being a direct landlord.
What about simpler options? Money market funds, high-yield savings,
NerdWallet covers these. Lower risk, good for emergency funds.
but lower returns too.
Definitely. You might make a few $100 a year on $10,000. It's more about capital preservation with a tiny bit of interest.
Okay. Peer-to-peer lending. Lending money directly to people or businesses.
NerdWallet mentions it, citing potential returns around 5% historically from platforms like Prosper, but that's before fees and taxes, and varies hugely by loan.
Sounds okay, but Fourth Way's analysis brings up a lot of risks.
A lot. 13 key risks. Beyond just bad debt, there's psychological stuff like greed influencing you, Platform risk, the site going bust, liquidity risk, inflation.
Wow. Legal changes, currency risks, cybercrime.
It's complex. Fourth Way strongly advises spreading money very thinly across many loans and platforms to mitigate these risks.
So, potential for higher returns than savings, but way more complex and risky.
Absolutely. You really need to understand what you're getting into.
Okay. Samantha Nost also mentioned renting out other assets, like tools or storage space.
Yeah, briefly. Needs ownership, insurance considerations. Bankrate adds ideas like renting your car for ads,
Though NerdWallet noted some negative reviews for those companies.
right, or renting parking spaces, household items. But liability is always a big question mark there.
Feels like small beer, mostly, with hassle.
Could be. Depends on the asset and demand, I suppose.
What about dropshipping? North covered this too.
She did. The model is simple. Online store, list wholesale items, wholesaler ships, no inventory needed.
Sounds easy.
But she says it's far from passive. Very crowded market. Need a unique niche, strong marketing.
Customer service issues, thin margins, supplier reliance.
All challenges, she points out,
Oh,
requires constant attention. Not passive. Her advice. Start small, test, focus heavily on marketing.
got it. Lastly, NerdWallet mentioned crypto staking,
Yeah, using your crypto to verify blockchain transactions for rewards.
but not for all coins, like Bitcoin, and there are risks.
Exactly. Penalties if you mess up, sometimes locking up your coins. Their Ethereum example showed about a 2% APY.
Plus the general volatility of crypto.
Adds another big layer of risk and complexity.
Okay, wow. We've covered a lot of ground. So bringing this all together, what's the real picture of passive income in 2025?
I think Samantha North nails it. True passive income is rare.
Yeah,
Most strategies need significant upfront work. She says passive often means eventually passive, if successful.
I like that framing. And Bankrate agrees.
Pretty much. In the end, it still involves work. You just do the work at the beginning.
Yeah.
And often, ongoing maintenance is needed too.
So the word passive is, well, a bit misleading.
Very misleading for many of these. The goal is income without constant time for money trade. But getting there and staying there usually takes real effort.
And we can't forget taxes. Bankrate laid out how different streams are taxed.
Crucial point. Rental income, royalties often taxed as ordinary income. Interest, capital gains have their own rules. Long-term gains often taxed less.
And potential tax breaks with retirement accounts or municipal bonds.
Yes, ways to potentially shelter some income. NerdWallet's advice is simple. Keep good records.
Bankrate also suggested setting up as a business for deductions.
Could be beneficial, yeah. Allows access to self-employed retirement plans too. Tax planning is essential for the net return.
What if you have no money to start? Bankrate had a thought on that.
Yeah, focus on your expertise. Create product services. Leverage your time and skills as the initial investment in those work-heavy options, like courses or building an online presence.
Right. Use what you have. Okay. So summing up this deep dive, the big message seems to be the dream of effortless income is mostly just that, a dream.
Pretty much. Reality involves work, significant upfront investment of time, energy, maybe money.
The passive part, if it comes, is usually after the hard yards of creation, launch, and maintenance. Realistic expectations are key.
Absolutely. Understand the effort involved, the potential returns, the risks. Passive also really means deferred active work.
Which leads to a final thought for you, the listener.
Huh.
Given how much active work seems to be involved in most quote-unquote passive income streams, is chasing purely passive income the right goal? Or is it maybe better to focus on building income streams that use your skills, things you actually find interesting?
While acknowledging that ongoing work is probably part of the deal.
Exactly. What level of ongoing effort are you actually prepared to put in for more financial flexibility? Definitely something to mull over. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.